Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Friday everybody. UK-based Reuters has broken the story that General Secretary Xi Jinping will not attend the G20 leaders meeting in India in September, but instead will send Premier Li Qiang in his place. No reason for the decision was provided. While such a move is not unprecedented, it is significant. Xi had attended all in-person G20 summit gatherings since taking office in 2013. Indian media reports that Indian authorities had known for a month that Xi would give the leaders summit a miss. If this is true, it would signal that the decision was very much premeditated. Xi skipping the G20 has some obvious implications. First, there will be no possibility now of a Biden-Xi meeting around the event. The last face-to-face meeting between the two leaders was at another multilateral event in Indonesia. And second, India will likely view this as a snub of Modi, a poor sign for PRC-Indian relations and of Sino-Indian tension within the BRICS grouping. Indeed, US-based Bloomberg reports this week that tensions between China and India threaten to prevent Group of 20 leaders from issuing a joint communiqué for the first time since the forum was created in 1999. In the run-up to the summit in New Delhi, starting later next week, the outlet reports, citing unnamed sources, China has blocked draft proposals on language regarding emerging market debt and condemning Russia's war on Ukraine. Adding, quote, one of the people said China has been particularly belligerent in opposing Indian Prime Minister Modi's theme for the conference being written in Sanskrit, end quote. UK-based The Financial Times, citing Western officials, writes today that Xi's decision to skip the event would also be a blow for its importance. But it could also result in China having less gravitas at the event, reducing its influence on messaging. Quote, he never missed a G20 meeting before because it's a vital occasion for China to try and shape the global narrative. G20 offers China that platform to outcompete the American messages. End quote. Next up, the Chinese economy, and we move through the salient developments. Yesterday, Thursday evening, the People's Bank of China and the National Financial Supervision and Administration Bureau jointly issued the Notice on Adjusting and Optimizing Differential Housing Credit Policy and the Notice on Matters Related to Lowering the Interest Rate of Existing First Home Loans. For our purposes, all we need to know is that this is yet more regulatory support for China's very sick housing sector. Put simply, the notices allow cities to reduce the minimum down payment ratios on first and second home purchases and to move forward with mortgage rate refinancing for existing mortgages. So these are essentially demand-side support measures. Kelvin Lam, a China economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics, expressed with the news, quote, the entire package is a step in the right direction. These are stabilizing measures and will help keep confidence from sliding further, end quote. Others are less optimistic. Quote, in a normal real estate cycle, these moves would be a strong flip for real estate transactions. But we are not in a normal real estate cycle, so this will likely have a marginal impact at best, end quote. We're now seeing new support measures almost on a daily basis, and it's no surprise why. The data, even the official data, continues to be very concerning, and in the past few days we've received yet more numbers provoking concern. Yesterday, Thursday, China's National Bureau of Statistics published its Manufacturing Activity Index. The official index showed that manufacturing activity shrunk for a 6th consecutive month in August, while services sector activity slowed again as consumers continued to pull back spending. We note, however, that according to the Caixin China General Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index PMI, which claims to give a more independent snapshot of the sector, activity in China's manufacturing sector expanded in August at its fastest clip since February. quote, with employment growing at the fastest pace in almost 13 years, end quote. Though we note this is off a very low base. Manufacturing accounts for approximately 28% of China's GDP. The new figures for the housing market are the most concerning, however. According to preliminary data from the China Real Estate Information Corp, the value of new home sales by the 100 biggest real estate companies fell 33.9% year-on-year to 343 billion yuan, $47.2 billion US dollars. That's a 1.3% drop month-on-month. There may be some bright spots in the economic numbers in August, though. In its monthly report published yesterday, China Beige Book's survey of Chinese businesses found that consumer spending bounced back in August after a weak July. The report said that all 5 categories, apparel, automotive, food, furniture and appliances, and luxury, saw a marked increase in sales in August. Explaining, quote, the services sector revenge spending basket saw continued strength, with travel and chain restaurants maintaining their high growth momentum and sales jumping in hospitality, end quote. Indeed, after the publication of this report, the managing director of China Beige Book, speaking to Bloomberg TV, expressed, quote, there's a dangerous consensus out there right now that China is on the verge of collapse. And the first thing that these data have made very clear is that's simply not the case. End quote. In a separate interview with CNBC, he noted that recent monetary support, that is interest rate and deposit rate cuts, is starting to have an impact. While he dismisses warnings about economic collapse, he does acknowledge that China indeed faces major headwinds, especially in housing. Quote, the big problem remains the property market, where you have very serious amounts of weakness, and I think that is overshadowing some of the positive news in the economy right now. End quote. Next up, US Ambassador and former Obama White House Chief of Staff has some scathing words for Beijing. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit that like button. Sharing this with people who you think would enjoy this episode is a big help too. And if you would like to be on top of the most up-to-date analysis on China, maybe consider subscribing, hit that bell notification, and you'll have these episodes when they're released every day. And of course, anyone who can go the extra mile and help me keep this channel financially sustainable, open and free for everyone 6 days a week, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. As always, thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. And finally, for today's video, this week, US Ambassador to Japan and former White House Chief of Staff during the Obama presidency has made several statements highly critical of Beijing and Xi Jinping in an interview with the US-based Wall Street Journal and in an op-ed for Japanese financial media outlet Nikkei. Some of the comments are unusually candid and critical for an ambassador. Though Ambassador Emanuel is not a powerful decision-maker in the current administration, his voice is respected and will have some influence on the ongoing China policy debate in Washington. We end today's video by examining some of his comments, which we will quote directly. In his Wall Street Journal interview, Ambassador Emanuel expressed, quote, I'm all for dialogue, but I'm also not for being, as my father would say, a schmuck. I mean, she stood in the Rose Garden and said, we will never militarize the South China Sea. The wheels of his plane were not even up and they were doing exactly just that. They're part of the World Trade Organization, international economic structure. I can't tell you how many times I've had a CEO in my office, when I was chief of staff, when I was a congressman, and they would say that they're stealing intellectual property, they're stealing products, they're making us give it to them for free, so they could basically underwrite and then also undermine your product and do nothing but replicate it. Not even a bolt or a screw is different. So at some point, you got to say, look, we'd like to have a good relationship, but if they keep lying and cheating, then you would be a fool to go into that discussion not knowing what they're doing. And my view is to let them keep doing what they're doing. You're the one with 30% unemployment among your youth, not us. You've got 10 years of housing with nobody in it. You got people that are getting fleeced by the big developers and banks. You got municipalities in China that makes Chicago look like a AAA rated bond. Keep at it. There is nothing the United States is doing to you that comes close to what you have done to yourself. We didn't do any of that. So my point is, we're ready to have a conversation. But I'm also ready not to get in the way of you doing to yourself what we could never, even on our best day, hope to do to you. And if you want to stay doing it, if you want to walk away from the international system that you benefited from, well then, by the grace of God, go ahead. Why should I get in the way of that? End quote. And then, in the Nikkei op-ed, Emanuel hit back at China for its criticism of Japan's decision to release treated wastewater into the ocean. Once again, the comments are highly critical. Quote, "My return this week to the Fukushima region was set to be both a diplomatic mission and a personal endeavor to better understand Soma's resilience in recovery. However, given China's baseless political and economic actions against Japan over the release of treated wastewater from the nuclear plant, the trip has now taken on the additional purpose of standing shoulder to shoulder with Japan to confront Beijing's latest acts of economic coercion. There is a stark contrast to be made and lesson to be learned from Japan's meticulous handling of Fukushima's treated water compared with China's approach to public health challenges that have originated in its own backyard, such as avian flu, SARS, and COVID-19. One cannot help but wonder how different the global health landscape would be and how many lives would have been saved if China had engaged in even a fraction of the due diligence, openness, and international cooperation that Japan has in managing Fukushima. In those cases, China's response was marked by a lack of transparency, accountability, or timely information sharing with the global community. This not only hampered an effective response in real time, but has also led to the loss of countless lives. China has not subjected itself to scientific scrutiny. With its own power plant releases, China routinely discharges tritium from at least 4 reactors at levels 5 times higher than that now being released from Fukushima Daiichi. This occurs without any international scientific review, consultation, or notification. The lack of scientific rigor is glaring, especially when contrasted with Japan's work with the international scientific community. China's environmental recklessness extends beyond its borders. It is the world's single worst offender against marine sustainability. From Africa to South America, from the Pacific Islands to the South China Sea, illegal Chinese fishing fleets are depleting global fish stocks, undermining other nations' food security, and wreaking havoc on ecological systems." End quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a wonderful Friday, and I will see you all tomorrow.